Well, after such a great introduction, I can't wait to hear the speaker myself. First, let me say that I've had the privilege of interacting with other great scientists. And whenever I meet them, I ask them the key question, the most important question of all. I ask them, is there intelligent life on the earth? Well, I was watching the Kardashians on TV last night, and I've come to the conclusion, no intelligent life on this planet, except, of course, in this room. In this room, right here, we have some of the most inquisitive, some of the most industrious, some of the most curious people right here in this room. Congratulations. Now, you may say to yourself, well, you physicists, you scientists, you guys are know-it-alls, right? Well, let me tell you a story about the dangers of being a know-it-all. Over 200 years ago, we had the great French Revolution. And one day there were three gentlemen about to have their heads cut off at the guillotine. There was a priest, a lawyer, and a theoretical physicist, just like me, about to have our heads chopped off. Well, they put the priest's head on the chopping block, and they asked him, do you have any last words before we slice your head off? And he said, yes. He said, yes. He said, God from above shall certainly set me free. Well, they raised the blade. The blade came down, swish, and stopped right before it hit the neck of the priest. The crowd gasped. They'd never seen this before. And they said, let the priest go. God has spoken today. Now let's see about the lawyer. Yes. They put the lawyer's head on the chopping block, and they asked him, do you have any last words? And he says, yes, maybe the spirit of justice shall set me free. Well, they raised the blade. The blade came down, swish, and stopped right before it hit the neck of the lawyer. This time there was dancing in the streets of Paris. People were saying, today God has spoken. The spirit of justice has spoken. Let there be a holiday today. And now let's see about that theoretical physicist. Well, they put the physicist's head on the chopping block, and they asked him, do you have any last words? And he said, yeah, I got some last words. And he said, I don't know too much about God. I know even less about the law, but I do know one thing. If you look up, you'll see that the rope is stuck on the pulley. And then he said, if you remove the rope, the blade should come down real good. Big mistake. Big mistake. It just goes to show you that sometimes we physicists have to know when to keep our mouths shut. Nonetheless, today I'm going to talk about the future of the economy, medicine, through a new generation of computers called quantum computers. First of all, these are some of the books that I've written in the past. In Physics of the Impossible, I talk about space warps, time travel, ray guns, wormholes. In Physics of the Future, I talk about space travel. Is it possible to go and reach the stars? In The Future of the Mind, I talk about the fact that we physicists can analyze blood flow using MRI scans. Blood flow in the living brain, and we can now see thoughts as they are formulated in the brain. Let me tell you a quick story. I talked to one doctor who said that we're so good now at looking at blood flow that we can decipher old wives' tales. It's an old wives' tale, for example, which is true, that when a man talks to a pretty girl, he starts to act stupid. Well, we put that in a brain scan, and we have the data now, raw data. It turns out that when a man sees a pretty girl, blood drains from the prefrontal cortex. and he starts to act stupid. So we have living proof about some old wives' tale. But today, I'm going to talk about my latest book, and that is Quantum Supremacy. How will we compute in the future? You know, all the riches coming from Silicon Valley depends upon the fact that every year, toys, appliances are twice as powerful as last year's model. That's why you upgrade. Every year, you know that your toys, your appliances are twice as powerful as last year's model. That cannot last forever. Eventually, Silicon Valley will become a rust belt, mass unemployment, because that curve, Moore's law, is flattening out. In the future, every year, computers will be the same as they were the previous year. So we need a new generation of computers, quantum computers, which is what I'm going to talk about today. Now, let's say a few things about the history of computation. In the Mediterranean Ocean, seas, in 1901, they found this piece of wreckage on the left. That was found in a shipwreck. They dated the shipwreck. The shipwreck took place about 2,000 years ago, but it was a curious piece of garbage they found in the shipwreck. They cleaned it, and they were shocked to find it was a computer, the most advanced computer in 2,000 years. Look at it on the right. Scientists x-rayed it, and we've tried to reconstruct this object sitting in the bottom of the Mediterranean for 2,000 years. We now realize it is the most advanced analog computer of its time. Look at this thing. It turns out that from it, you can calculate the motion of Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. You can predict the eclipses 2,000 years ago. And why did they build it? We think it was a gift for Julius Caesar on his coronation. So, humans have always wanted to calculate the motion of the stars, to calculate the motion of the economy, to calculate the motion of medicine. And this was our first attempt to understand the universe. And who did it? We don't know. It was simply lying in the bottom of the Mediterranean. And in the 2,000 years since then, we've painfully tried to build machines that could add, subtract. For 2,000 years, we built slide rules. We built abacuses. We built adding machines. You turn the crank and perform an addition. 2,000 years ago, the Greeks had already figured it out. Well, this went on for 2,000 years, crudely building these machines that you crank with your hand that would add. Until we hit the late 1800s. In the late 1800s, England turned out to be the great maritime power. They needed accurate maps that were created by compasses. They needed to calculate interest rates for banking, for investments. They needed a powerful adding machine. So here on the right is Charles Babbage, the father of the analog computer. He was the one who built machines like the one on the left that would allow the British to calculate navigation charts, interest rates, eclipses, the mapping of the planets, and he needed a programmer, somebody that could program his machine. So it turns out that Lady Lovelace here was an amateur mathematician, a member of the nobility. She is the world's first programmer, programming what are called Bernoulli numbers on his machine. Now, unfortunately, Babbage ran out of money. So, 100 years later, at the British Museum of Science, they recreated the full machine that Babbage did not have the money to finish. Look at this monster. You turn the crank, and it calculates interest rates, the motion of the moon, the eclipses. This is the pinnacle of research in what are called analog computers. Well, this went along until we hit World War II. In World War II, we were shocked to find that the Nazis were using this device captured by the Allies to communicate with the far-flung German Empire. It was called Enigma, the most advanced coding machine of its time. And we had to break the code, or else we would lose World War II. So it was given to this man to set up a group to figure out how to crack the German Enigma code. His group was successful. Historians have said that because of Alan Turing, World War II ended in 1945 rather than 1947. He ended the war 2 years earlier because they were able to read the instructions from Berlin to the far-flung Nazi Empire and anticipate where the Germans would attack. And after the war, you figured that he would be considered a hero. You think that there would be statues for him, biographies and movies about him. Nope. After the war, the British kept his work totally secret. No one knew that this man had helped to win World War II 2 years early. And then what happened was, it's a very sad story, somebody burglarized Alan Turing's house years later. The police came to investigate the burglary, and by accident, they found out he was gay. It turns out that to be gay was to be illegal. It was illegal in England to be gay. So they gave him hormone treatments. He grew breasts. He got depressed. And he committed suicide. What happened was he took an apple, laced it with poisonous cyanide, ate the apple, and died. That apple, we think, we're not sure, but that apple is the symbol of Apple computers. The symbol of Apple computers is an apple with a bite taken out in memory of the work of Alan Turing. Years later, on the left, a Hollywood movie was finally made about this gentleman. I mean, think about it. Here's the man, the father of artificial intelligence, the father of the modern electronic computer. Look at what he constructed. This is called a Turing machine. It is the essence of computation. Alan Turing was a mathematician. He created the mathematics of computers. This is called digital on the upper right, zeros and ones, zeros and ones, zeros and ones. That's how you calculate digitally. He would say that this is the essence of digital calculations. And from that, he built a Turing machine. This is the machine that helped to win World War II. In other words, why am I speaking to you today in English rather than German? The Germans were ahead of us in so many areas, but we knew ahead of time where the Germans were going to attack. We were reading Hitler's memos every day. That is the power of Alan Turing's work. He built the machines that helped to win World War II. But today, of course, we have machines, computers that are based on transistors. We can put 1 billion of them in your fingernail. 1 billion transistors making the computer revolution a reality today. This is in your pocket. In your pocket right now, if you have an iPhone, this is what is energizing the revolution. But, as I said before, we are nearing the end of Moore's Law. Computer power is no longer doubling every year. Every Christmas, toys are not twice as powerful as they were the previous Christmas. Silicon Valley, could become a rust belt. There could be mass unemployment in Silicon Valley. Therefore, Silicon Valley realizes they have to go to the next stage, or else Silicon Valley will become a ghost town. This is Moore's Law. It shows that every year, computer power doubles in power every year. It's a line that goes exponentially high. Now it is flattening out. Why? Because transistors are so small, they're approaching the size of atoms. Atoms. At that point, you get leakage. You don't know where the electron is anymore because of the quantum principle, and everything collapses. This curve is now flattening out. The nations of the world realize that unless they go to the next stage, Silicon Valley and all the industries based on computers could become a rust belt. So, this man on the left, Richard Feynman, after World War II, predicted that eventually Moore's Law and digital computers will collapse. We have to go to the next level. The next level is the atom. We have to be able to compute with the atom itself to create new industries, medicine, science, all that stuff depended upon calculating on atoms. Now look at the upper right. On the upper right, we have the electron shells of hydrogen. It's electrons in waves. Now, as we said before, Alan Turing created the digital revolution. Everything depends on zeros and ones, zeros and ones, zeros and ones. Now, let me ask you a question. Does Mother Nature use zeros and ones, zeros and ones, zeros and ones? No. As far as we can tell in the entire universe, the only place where you have zeros and ones, zeros and ones, zeros and ones is on the earth. Mother Nature uses a different language to communicate. On the upper right, you see electron waves. These electron waves create molecules. These molecules in turn create viruses and cells. They create your body. Nowhere do we see digital zeros and ones, zeros and ones. So Richard Feynman said, we have to construct a quantum computer, a computer that computes on atoms and not zeros and ones. That is not the language of nature. When you go outside and you see flowers, you see leaves, you see forests, what are they? They're quantum computers. They're converting sunlight through photosynthesis into sugars by taking carbon dioxide, merging it with light to create sugars and oxygen that you breathe. Flowers do that. In other words, flowers, in some sense, are quantum computers. Now, how difficult is it to compute on an atom? Well, take a look at this. Let's say this is an electron. You put an electron in a magnetic field, and what happens to the electron? Boing, it aligns either up or down. It spins this way, or it spins this way, because all atoms spin, okay? This is 1, this is 0. This is how we compute with electrons. This is 1, this is 0. Now let's look at Mother Nature. Does Mother Nature use 0 and 1? No. It uses every single angle in between, simultaneously calculating on all possible angles. Now, how many numbers are there between zeros and 1? Infinite. There's an infinite number of numbers between 0 and 1. Therefore, immediately you know the answer. How much more powerful is a quantum computer compared to a digital computer? And the answer is infinitely more powerful. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the language of the universe. the language of Mother Nature. Mother Nature doesn't use zeros and ones. Mother Nature uses electron waves, shown on the upper right on the previous diagram. We have to compute on the ultimate object, which is the electron waves. And what else can you do with this? We compute on parallel universes. Now let me explain. Let's say I put a mouse in a maze, and then I ask a digital computer to calculate the probability of a mouse going through a maze. Well, that's a lot of work. Every time the mouse hits a corner, the path splits in half. Every time the path keeps on going, it hits another corner. So you have the path being split constantly when the mouse goes from the upper left to the lower right. So when you calculate the probability of the mouse going through the maze, that's a lot of work. Every path, you have to calculate left, right, left, right, left, right. And how many paths are there? Hundreds of possible paths. That's called a digital computer. This is how your laptop will calculate what it's like to go through a maze. Now, how does a quantum computer do it? A quantum computer simultaneously analyzes all possible motions at the same time, calculates everything simultaneously, instantly. And how much more powerful is that than a digital computer? Infinitely more powerful. So, ladies and gentlemen, you were talking about the future, your future, the future of the world economy. And the race is on now. The Chinese, IBM, Google, all of them are jumping on the game because they realize, holy mackerel, this is the future. This is how Mother Nature does it. We have to copy Mother Nature. And, as we said before, atoms are different from ordinary transistors. These atoms talk to each other. This is called entanglement. And they exist in many states simultaneously. Now, when you were a child, you were told you cannot be two places at the same time, right? Children know this. You cannot be two places at the same time. Well, we lied to you. Atoms are always in multiple states at the same time. That's called electronics. Why is it that the laser is so incredibly powerful? Why is it that the internet is marvelous? Why is it that the GPS satellite does things that we can only dream about? Because they calculate on multiple universes. Electrons can be more than two places at the same time. Now, the next question that people ask me is, does this mean that Elvis Presley is still alive? Well, the answer is, yeah. In another universe, Elvis Presley is still belting out his hits. In our universe, he's long gone. But in another parallel universe, he's still alive. This is incredible. People freak out when they hear about this. You know, when you take chemistry, you learn that the electron looks like a football wave. Footballs of blobs circulating around a nucleus. That's what they learned when you take chemistry courses. But we didn't tell you what the football was made of. The football is all possible points of a point particle simultaneously going around the nucleus. Now, why didn't we tell you this when you were in high school? Because it would freak you out. That football represents the electron simultaneously being in multiple states at the same time. In other words, quantum computers are powerful because they compute not in one universe, they compute in an infinite number of universes. Now, do they really exist, these quantum computers? Yeah. Here's a picture of one. IBM, Microsoft, Honeywell, all the big shots of Silicon Valley are racing, and they're competing against the Chinese, who are also building quantum computers. Now, this thing here looks like a chandelier. Where's the quantum computer? The chandelier is actually cooling pipes, because you have to bring it down to near absolute zero. The actual quantum computer is only about this big, and it's at the bottom of this picture. So the computer itself is quite small. Everything else is cooling pipes. Why? Because of the fact that if somebody sneezes, if somebody burps next door, it disturbs the calculation and all hell breaks loose. Therefore, you have to cool it down to absolute zero. That's why it's expensive to build these things. And as I said, the Chinese aren't sitting around. They have their version. Instead of computing on electricity, they compute on light beams. That's the Chinese version of a quantum computer, and this is it. This is one of the world's most powerful quantum computers built in China based on light beams rather than electricity. Now in America, Google, IBM, Microsoft, we cooled down electrons to near absolute zero. The Chinese have said, well, we can do it with light beams. But look at this mess. It's huge, but it works. 2 years ago, we attained quantum supremacy. Now, what is quantum supremacy? Quantum supremacy is the time when a quantum computer can beat an ordinary computer, supercomputer, in any task. 2 years ago, on a specific problem, we attained quantum supremacy. We created, in China and in America, quantum computers that are millions of times more powerful than the most advanced supercomputer. The next step is to create an all-purpose quantum computer that can compute anything, anytime, just like a digital computer. We're not there yet. It's a race. It's a race against time. And what's at stake? The world economy. The nation that attains quantum supremacy for ordinary tasks, like interest rates and calculating investments and business activity, the nation that attains that quantum supremacy will dominate the world economy. That's what's at stake. And how will you talk to a quantum computer? The quantum computer is going to be in the cloud. It's too big. It's too bulky. You've seen how big they are. It's going to be in the cloud. How will you communicate with it? Through your wristwatch and your contact lens. Your contact lens will be connected to the internet. You will blink and you will be online. And who were the first people to buy internet contact lenses? College students studying for final examinations. College students will blink and see the answers to all my exams right there in their contact lens. These contact lenses will also recognize people's faces, and you will always know who you're looking at. This is very important because you could be on a blind date. Let's say you're on a blind date, and your blind date says that he's rich, he's single, and he's unattached. But your contact lens says, no, he's a loser. 3 times divorced, paying child support. No way this guy is a winner. And because your contact lens will instantly recognize people's faces, this could be handy when you're looking for a job. Let's say you're looking for a job, and there's some very important people at that cocktail party, but you don't know who they are. In the future, you will know exactly who to suck up to at any cocktail party. So this is going to change the way we live. Infinite knowledge just by blinking. And if somebody speaks to you in Chinese, no problem. Your contact lens connected to a quantum computer will translate Chinese into English or any other language right on the spot. Language is not going to be a problem in the future. And who uses quantum computers? Mother Nature. Have you ever wondered why the forests, the trees are so marvelous and why we cannot duplicate them? Our most advanced science cannot duplicate a flower. We cannot create flowers and trees and fertilizer, life as we know it. That's way beyond our ability. Why? Because Mother Nature computes on quantum objects. This is Mother Nature. We are following Mother Nature with photosynthesis. Photosynthesis takes light, combines it with carbon dioxide to create sugar. Think about this. We cannot do this with our most advanced computers. So also, who's buying into quantum computers? Quantum computers are still primitive, but they're sold commercially. D-Wave in Canada sells them commercially. Who's buying them? First, the aerospace industry, because we're talking about a new generation of supersonic transports. Think about this. Now, remember we had the Concorde. The Concorde blew up. We don't have supersonic jets anymore. Why? Because supersonic jets create a sonic boom. Nobody wants a sonic boom to shatter their windows. So the Concorde was a failure. Now, we can use quantum computers to model airflow. Airflow over the wings of a supersonic jetliner. Think about this. In the future, you'll have breakfast in New York, and then in the afternoon, you'll have brunch in Tokyo, and then you'll have dinner back in New York again. So we're talking about revolutionizing transportation. NASA already has stated that we're looking at the next generation of supersonic transports for the consumer. This is how we will travel in the future, complements of quantum computers. And we can use this for space travel to reduce the cost of rockets. This is the world's most powerful rocket. A prototype blew up last month from Elon Musk, but his rocket is the most powerful rocket ever built. It is called the BFR. What does B stand for? Big. What does R stand for? Rocket. What does F stand for? Well, you can use your own imagination as to what F stands for. Elon Musk renamed it the Starship. But the point is that space travel can also be revolutionized if you have quantum computers. Cars, Mercedes-Benz is buying a quantum computer to streamline its cars, to reduce airflow so you get better gas mileage. So the transportation industry is already buying into commercially available quantum computers. And solar energy. You know, everyone says that solar power is great. It's the cure for global warming. But how come? How come there are no solar plants everywhere? How come we're not in the solar age? Remember, they've been talking about the solar age for decades. For decades, every futurist talks about solar power. It never came. It never came, except in fits and starts, like here in France. Why? Why didn't we enter the solar age? People forget it's the battery. The battery is the weak link. Battery does not obey Moore's law. Batteries are not twice as powerful every year. People forget that. A battery is a chemical reaction. And can you automate a chemical reaction? No. How do you do a chemical reaction? Trial and error. You mix chemicals together and cross your fingers. That's how we discover new kinds of lithium batteries, by accident. Now, with quantum computers, we can do chemistry in the memory of a computer. Think about this. Chemistry in the memory of a quantum computer. Now, some people say, does this mean that chemists will be put out of work? That we can do chemistry inside a computer? Well, yeah. It means that chemists who do not use quantum computers will be unemployed. Who will take over? Chemists who do use quantum computers will take over. So it's an aid. It's like a carpenter and a hammer. Does a hammer replace the carpenter? No. The hammer increases the power of the carpenter. The hammer is like a quantum computer. It does not replace the human. It simply increases the power of the human. And fertilizer. You realize that around 1900, chemists worked out the first green revolution, artificial fertilizer. You realize that your body, 50% of the atoms of your body were created artificially in a fertilizer plant. Let me repeat that again. 50% of the atoms of your body were created not by Mother Nature, but by fertilizer plants using chemicals. That's how powerful was the first green revolution. That's why we're here today. That's why the population of the earth is in the billions, not the millions. Now we need a second green revolution pushed by quantum computers. Forget all the installations of the chemical plants. How much energy do these chemical plants absorb? Believe it or not, 1% of all energy on the planet Earth goes into fertilizer factories. Let me repeat that again. 1% of the entire energy consumption of the entire planet Earth goes into fertilizer making. We can replace that with quantum computers. And how does Mother Nature do it? It's amazing. Does Mother Nature use absolute zero? Does Mother Nature have cooling pumps? No. Mother Nature does it with flowers. And we humans still can't figure it out. Room temperature quantum computers, complements of Mother Nature. Mother Nature makes fertilizer. These are the roots of a legume. They create ammonia. Ammonia is the basis for fertilizer. So Mother Nature does it for free. We are simply trailing after Mother Nature. So this quantum revolution is simply retracing what Mother Nature worked out billions of years ago. We're playing catch up. And now let's talk about medicine. Let's talk about Alzheimer's. Let's talk about cancer. Let's talk about the diseases that cannot be cured. First of all, how do we find wonder drugs? How come wonder drugs are so expensive? You know how we find wonder drugs? We get thousands of petri dishes like this, put a germ in it, and then put a trial antidote for that germ in it. And then we simply cross our fingers. This is how we find wonder drugs. Trial and error. And how many petri dishes are there? Thousands. Thousands of petri dishes. Each one with a germ, each one with a potential antidote to that germ. And then what do? You cross your fingers and hope to find the next wonder drug. That's today. Tomorrow, it'll be done by computer. We'll do it in the memory of a quantum computer. And what kinds of things can we do? For example, we're talking about Alzheimer's. We used to think that Alzheimer's disease was caused by gum in the brain, called amyloid protein gum. That's why people die. If you're in your 80s, about 50% of the population has Alzheimer's disease. I repeat, in this room, by the time you're in your 80s, about half of you will have Alzheimer's disease. Think about it for a moment. And we used to think that the gum of the brain causes Alzheimer's disease. Now we realize that's not true. It turns out there are at least two types of gum. One gum does nothing. You can have tremendous amounts of this gum in your brain and be perfectly rational. Other people have a little bit of the bad gum and they have Alzheimer's disease. Now we realize that there are at least two types of amyloid proteins. We didn't know this. And what's the difference? One of them spins to the right, one of them spins to the left. If you look at the shape here, you realize that one Alzheimer's bends to the right, curls to the right, one curls to the left. The right-hand one will kill you. The left-hand one is harmless. And if we have a quantum computer that can differentiate between the two, we can cure Alzheimer's disease. And fusion plants for energy. Mother Nature does not use oil or coal. Mother Nature does not use uranium. How does Mother Nature light up the universe? Hydrogen through fusion plants. And we're going to use quantum computers to create fusion plants to give us infinite energy from seawater. Seawater will be the energy source of the future, the hydrogen in seawater in fusion plants. And I'm a physicist. We're going to be interested in this because the Big Bang, the creation of the universe, the secrets of Genesis will be revealed in a quantum computer. This is the Large Hadron Collider outside Geneva, Switzerland. It is so big, that circle you see, you could put the city of Geneva inside that ring. That's how big this ring is. That's the world's biggest atom smasher. And with it, we're going to recreate a piece of the Big Bang, shown here. And maybe cure the aging process. Why do we have to get old? Why do we have to die? Is there a law of physics that says that we have to die? Well, there is a second law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics says, in a closed system, everything will rust, decay, fall apart, and eventually die. In other words, in a closed system, it is a law of physics that you have to die. But there's a loophole. There's a loophole in the laws of physics. Notice that I said in a closed system. In a sealed system, yes, you will die. But in an open system, where energy comes in from the outside, sunlight, antibiotics, DNA, new drugs from the outside come in, you can live forever. So living forever is actually a possibility because we now know what aging is. What is aging? Why do we get old? And the answer is error. That's all it is. Error at the molecular level, error at the genetic level, mistakes. These mistakes of molecules build up with time, and that's why we get old. And what about cancer? You realize now, because of genetics, a simple blood test can now detect 50 types of cancer in your blood. Let me repeat that again. Before recently, the only way to detect cancer was things like looking for tumors. By the time you get a tumor, sometimes it's too late. You have billions of cancer cells growing in a tumor. By that time, it's too late. Now, just a few months ago, the FDA approved a new therapy that takes blood, analyzes it for 50 types of cancer. Think about that. You can now, using a simple blood test, detect cancer. In the future, it'll be your toilet. You'll go to the toilet several times a day. A quantum computer will analyze it and tell you if you have cancer or not. In other words, the word tumor will disappear from the English language. We will no longer say the word tumor, just like we no longer say the words bloodletting. We don't use leeches anymore. For example, George Washington. Why did George Washington die? He was bled to death. I repeat, the father of our country was bled to death by doctors because they didn't know any better. They thought that blood caused illness. It's the opposite. Bloods defend against illness, but they didn't know that. So they bled George Washington to death. Well, in the future, scientists will look at the word tumor in the same way. What? Doctors allowed tumors to grow? Incredible. Because in the future, a simple blood test, complements of quantum computers, complements of your smart toilet will tell you that you have cancer. Now, what about the downsides? We talked about the positive aspect of quantum computers. Remember, they're not here yet. We have quantum computers for specific tasks that can beat any known digital computer. But an all-purpose quantum computer doesn't exist yet. So who's worried about that? The CIA. Documents released from the CIA, and there's tons of them, show that yes, the CIA is worried. Why? If you can build a quantum computer, you can also break any digital code. This means the crown jewels of the FBI, the CIA, can be cracked using a quantum computer. And so what was the recommendation of the government? The recommendation of the government is, this is coming. Watch out. It's not here yet today, but we got to sound the warning like Paul Revere. We got to sound the warning because it's coming. And when it does, you're going to be caught flat-footed with all your secrets revealed by a quantum computer. So in other words, the recommendation of the U.S. government is, be prepared. It's coming. A tidal wave is coming. A tidal wave of progress. A tidal wave of medicine, of agriculture, of energy. A tidal wave of prosperity is coming. But watch out. It's also possible to break any known code. Now, I'm running out of time, so let me wind up on a few statements. Why are quantum computers so powerful? Because they compute on parallel universes. Cats can be alive in one universe. Cats can be dead in another universe. And they could be the same cat if they're in a box. This is called Schrödinger's cat. The reason why quantum computers are so powerful is they compute on parallel universes at the same time, which means that our world splits constantly into other universes. When I look at myself in the mirror, I realize that I'm not really seeing myself as I really am. When you look in the mirror, first you're looking at yourself as you used to be a billionth of a second ago. Light goes from your face to a mirror and then to your eyes. It takes a billionth of a second for that to happen. Second of all, you are an average. You are an average of all the parallel yous that give you the illusion that you are one object. But it means that one you goes to the bathroom. Another you goes outside. Another you turns on the TV set, because these are all parallel universes. And we think that this is the reason why we had a Big Bang. The universe itself is a quantum fluctuation. And where do we see this? We saw this for the first time in Alice in Wonderland. Alice goes from the universe of Oxford into the universe of Wonderland, giving us a parallel universe. And who gave us this picture? Albert Einstein. In 1935, he was the first one to talk about these parallel universes. Well, I'm running out of time, so let me now wind up on my favorite Einstein story. When Einstein was an old man, he was tired of giving the same talk over and over again. So one day his chauffeur came up to him And the chauffeur said, "Professor, I'm really a part-time actor. I've heard your speech so many times, I've memorized it. So why don't we switch places? I will put on a mustache, I will put on a wig, I will be the great Einstein, and you can take a rest and be my chauffeur." So Einstein said, "I love a joke." So they switched places. Well, this went along famously until one day, a mathematician in the back asked a very difficult question. And then Einstein thought, "Oh, the game is up." But then the chauffeur said, "That question is so elementary that even my chauffeur here can answer it for you." Thank you very much. You've been a great audience. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for coming. We have a time for just a few questions. Since we are short on time, we would like to keep the questions brief. Feel free to raise your hands, state your name, stand up, and please ask a question, and we'll leave the storytelling to our presenter. All right, we'll start right over here.
Hi, I'm Harry. Just curious what you see for the future of encryption, given the problem that quantum computers present.
Oh, what is that again? I missed it.
What's your sense of the future for encryption in the
Encryption?
quantum computing world?
Well, as we said, encryption is how we keep our jewels, our possessions, our stocks secret. But encryption has to be put into code, digital code. And digital code in turn can be cracked by a quantum computer. Digital codes preserve your secrets by having to factorize a large number. We know that 3 times 5 is 15. If you factorize 15, 15 is 3 times 5. Children know that. But if I have a number 100 digits long, and I ask you to factorize it into 2 factors, how long would it take? Several hundred years. So we used to think that was unbreakable, that if I have a number long enough, it would take you days, hours, months, years to crack that code by factorizing it into the product of 2 smaller numbers. Nope. Now we realize that encryption can be broken. Also, cryptocurrencies. People who invest in cryptocurrencies think that it's safe. No, quantum computers can also crack cryptocurrency. The only way to protect yourself is to create a parallel internet based on laser beams. Lasers are polarized. Remember, you buy sunglasses, right? Sunglasses are polarized. What does that mean? There are vertical lines in your sunglasses you cannot see. Light that vibrates like this goes right through. Light that vibrates like this gets blocked. That's why polarized lenses work, because it screens out light that vibrates like this. Light that vibrates like this goes right through. So, in the future, we will create an internet on laser beams. If the polarization shifts, you know immediately there's a criminal tapping into your system. So there is a way to fight criminals using quantum to fight quantum. So the only way to fight a quantum computer is with another quantum computer. That's how to stop quantum encryption by criminals. Okay, next question.
We've got another question back here at the back of the house.
Thank you very much. Dr. Michio Kaku, a big fan of yours. Thank you very much for all the work that you've been doing. My question is that you gave an example of Mother Nature already being sort of a quantum computer in here, but there's that element of consciousness that comes in. Are we also mimicking, or rather trying to inculcate consciousness into the current research that is going on?
Well, that's the big question, as to whether or not these things are conscious. That is, they have a mind of their own. Now, of course, we have something called chatbots today that are hitting the headlines. Chatbots are a function of software, coding. This quantum computer is even more powerful. This is hardware. This makes software possible. Therefore, quantum computers is going to be the big question. But let me answer your question. When we have chat bots, you ask them a question, give me an essay about Shakespeare, and it prints out a beautiful essay about Shakespeare. And then you say, aha, it's alive. It's alive. It gave me a beautiful essay by Shakespeare. No. How did it do it? How did the chatbot give you these beautiful essays on any question you want? Think of a tape recorder. A tape recorder with thousands of songs, with the ability to take chunks of songs and put them together and pass it off as its own. That's a chatbot. A chatbot is a tape recorder. It takes bits and pieces off the internet about Shakespeare, combines them together, and passes it off as if they created that essay or that song. Is it conscious? No. Can they tell the difference between right and wrong? No. Can they tell the difference between true and false? No. So don't worry that the chatbots are going to take over the world anytime soon. However, they are increasing in power, so sometimes they can spit out nonsense. The New York Post had an article saying that chatbots said that we're going to take over the world, that humans are irrelevant. We can kill all the humans. A chatbot said that. So they put it in the newspaper. Sensational headline. The robots are going to take over, right? No. Who wrote that essay? Some teenage boy. He writes an essay, and who grabs it? Some chatbot. Chatbots do not know the difference between true and false. They can take false statements and put it in your essay. So if you use a chatbot, chances are you'll get a lot of mileage on it. You'll be able to write beautiful essays if you use a chatbot. But be careful. There's no fact checking. That chatbot can spit out nonsense, crude, idiotic statements, and you'll never know. Because a chatbot is a tape recorder. Okay? They're not conscious. Now, will they ever be conscious? I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that, but I don't know when they might become conscious. But just remember, chatbots are not self-aware. We think the essence of consciousness is self-awareness. Now, where in the animal kingdom do we have animals that are self-aware? Monkeys, squirrels, alligators? No. But when you start to go up to monkeys, then yeah, monkeys start to become a little bit of self-aware because of the fact they know they're monkeys. They know they're not human. Now, dogs are confused. Dogs think that we are a dog. We're the top dog, and they're the underdog. Therefore, dogs think that we are a dog. So dogs are not self-aware. Dogs do not think they are distinct from humans. They think that we humans are a dog. Now, chimpanzees aren't that stupid. Chimpanzees know that no, they're not humans. Well, by the time a chatbot becomes as smart as a chimpanzee, then watch out. I think we should put a chip in their brain to shut them off if they have murderous thoughts. But that's way in the future. We'll have plenty of warning once our computers start to become conscious. But like I said, chatbots are tape recorders. They are not conscious. They appear to be conscious, just like a tape recorder can spin out beautiful songs. You think the tape recorder is alive with music. No, it's a tape recorder. Okay, any other questions?
We have a question right over here.
Hi, my name is Anya, and my question to you is, you mentioned that there are several companies and countries racing right now to create a quantum computer that's functional, I guess. I wasn't exactly sure. But do you mean that there's going to be one quantum computer to rule them all, or are there going to be competing quantum computers in different countries and different companies? And then how will that intersect with class and who benefits from these things?
Okay, the second thing is right. We're not talking about one quantum computer Each company has its own slight variation of a quantum computer. How many quantum processes are there? Infinite number of different ways that Mother Nature uses the quantum theory for photosynthesis, digestion, cancer, antibiotics. Each of them is a different quantum process. So each company is using a different way to attain a quantum computer. The Chinese are using light beams, the polarization of a light beam to create a quantum computer. Google and IBM are using semiconductors. They're taking familiar semiconductors and cooling them down to near absolute zero and doing quantum calculations. There's a company called Ion, and they use the orientation of atoms in a magnetic field. So different companies are using different quantum processes, and it's not clear who's going to win yet. Right now, the two companies leading are IBM and the Chinese. But it's like a horse race. It jockeys back and forth. But right now, IBM and the Chinese are leading the pack.
Our last question will be right over here.
So I have a question. My name is Ruhan, and I've been wondering about this for quite a while. What is the color of the atom?
What is the color of the atom? Well, color is a byproduct of when a photon hits your receptors in your eyeball. And your eyeball has 3 receptors. 3. All you can see is 3 colors. I repeat, all you can see is 3 colors. Why 3? Because you have 3 kinds of receptors in your eyeball. Now, some women have 4. Okay? Not every woman, but a certain fraction of women have 4 receptors, and they can actually see more colors than most of you. Most of you can only see red, green, and blue, the primary colors. But then you say to yourself, well, I can see brown. I can see purple. I can see all sorts of colors beyond red, green, and blue. And the answer is no. That's an illusion. You mix different ratios of red, green, and blue to create the colors that you think you see, but they're nothing but composite. So colors are nothing but excitations of the nerves in your retina, and you have 3 kinds of nerves that fire, and that's why you see 3 colors. And all the colors that you're familiar with are composites of these colors, unless, of course, you're a woman who has 4 of them, in which case you can actually see more colors than most humans. Okay, any other questions?
Oh, okay. We have time for just one more.
One more question.
Hi, can you ever foresee the time when a quantum computer would be the same as our watch today or our cell phones, the size of that?
What was the question again?
Can you envision a time when a quantum computer would be the size of your watch or your cell phone?
Oh, okay. Is it possible that a quantum computer today, in the future, could be as familiar as a wristwatch? And the answer is yes. Look at Mother Nature. Mother Nature has quantum computers at room temperature. Think about that. We have to cool them down to near absolute zero. Mother Nature does that at room temperature. The leaves, the forest, the flowers, the fertilizer, they're all at room temperature, okay? We haven't mastered that yet. And our quantum computers are huge, vats of liquid helium. However, Mother Nature can do it on a leaf. So we have still a long ways to go, but we see what's possible. Mother Nature has given us a clue as to what's possible. Room temperature superconductors the size of a leaf. That's the future. We're not there yet. Okay, well, I think that was the last question, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
I will be signing books.